tell you how I met Grandma.
Perfect.
Well, look at the camera.
Do I have to look at the camera?
You can do whatever you like.
Okay, I'll do whatever I like. I was in the Navy, and I'd been in the Navy over a year. I guess it was over a year. And I was stationed in Jacksonville, Florida, in an outfit called Fay 2 Land, Fleet Airborne Electronics Training Unit. And in our unit, we would teach people how to use radar sets to find the enemy.
Nice.
And we had 2 planes in the squadron, in our training squadron, and they were C-47s or R-4Ds. It's the same airplane. And I'd occasionally get to fly, and I used to go fly with them just for the fun of flying.
Sweet.
And as a crew member. Now, we also this is in Jacksonville, Florida, and there were a lot of, if Mom will plug her ears, there were a lot of pretty girls in the wards that were in Jacksonville. And it seems like every pretty girl there was would try to attach themselves to a serviceman, because there were no members of the church, hardly any members of the church that they could associate with and finally marry. But I wasn't looking this one particular night. We used to go on what's called Liberty, and Liberty is permission to leave the base and do anything you want for a period of time, which was 72 hours. Now, in the military, you had to have a certain number of people on the station where you were assigned. And during the beginning of World War II, you remember the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Well, since that time, they said that 1/4 of all military personnel should be on base ready for an emergency at any time. And so I was on Liberty this one night, and I had several friends that were members of the church, and we would go out and to the dances that they sponsored. The church sponsored dances. I don't know what they do now, but they sponsored dances, and there were, I'm trying to think, we only went to about 2 different places, which I think was Jacksonville Ward and West Connect Ward. Where else?
Springfield.
In the Springfield Ward. And I got to thinking while I was stationed in Jacksonville, I was stationed at the Naval Air Station. And whenever we went on Liberty, we could go from Friday afternoon till Monday morning, till you had to be to work Monday morning. And then all the rest of the time, you were assigned to the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had a friend that we'd go to the dances, and his name was Jack Nicholson. So he had been stationed there a lot longer than I had, and he said, out in Springfield Ward, they're having a dance, and which is all the MIA members and what have you would go to the dances. So we got on the bus. We went every place in Jacksonville on the bus. And so we got on the bus and started to get transfers on the bus, and then we finally got to the ward house. Well, we were there early, and when we got there, I noticed that there was a beautiful girl that was there, and so I said, "Who's that girl?" And I was told, and I think Earl Kinder told me who she was. And I said, "How old is she?" And they said, "Well, she's pretty close to 18, or maybe over that." And so all during that night, they had a special dance called the shoe flop? Cinderella dance. And that's where all the girls would put one of their shoes in a pile in the center of the floor, and boys around would dive for the shoes, and the shoe that they got is the girl that they got to dance with. So I saw this beautiful red shoe, and I thought, that's hers. And so I dove on the pile of shoes and got Jane's.
Smooth.
And so I took the shoe over to her, and she acted like it was a fun thing to do, is to get a shoe so she could dance with the boy. So we danced, and we danced several dances. There were different kinds of dances, and came time to go home, and I said, I don't know who said it, but I imagine it was me. She says, I said, "Could I walk you home?" And so Jack and I walked. She didn't live very far from the church, did she?
8 blocks.
8 blocks. And so Jack and I walked her home, and we got you know what that is?
Cleaning lady?
The body cleaning lady.
Go ahead.
Said, "Are you going to the dance? Is it a month away or
A month.
a month away?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Could I take you?" And I didn't know that she was preparing me to ask her.
It's one of the wild women have.
And so I the next week I don't know how it all happened, but it seems to me like from then on I was going into town and visiting her place about once a day.
There you go.
And when just before I went to her church for the first time, I came back to the barracks, and I think this is the most sacred and important part, is that I came into the barracks in the evening, and there was no one there. And it's rare that nobody was ever in the barracks. And so I went by and stood by my bunk, and I thought, I ought to ask the Lord if I should get married. And so I knelt down by my bunk, and I normally wouldn't kneel by my bunk to say my prayers, because the barracks would be completely full. with people. And so I knelt down by my bunk and I said my prayers. And this time when I said my prayers, I said it out loud. And so that I could feel good about my prayers that evening. And so in my prayers I said, Lord, it's about the time I should get married. I didn't know how young I was. But I still said, it's about time I got married. Could you direct me? Would you direct me to a woman who would be the best mother for my children? I was worried about her being a good mother than I was about how well she looked or shape was or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
All that was a bonus.
Nice.
And so I said my prayers, and it was right after that that I met Jane, and then we dated for I think 14 months. 20 months. And I'd come from the Naval Air Station and to her home and visit with her in the evening. I had to get back to the Naval Air Station by I guess it was 11 o'clock in the evening, because the buses would quit running about that time. And so we dated for quite a while, and there was some of the most wonderful experiences that I've had in my companionship with Jane. And I think I ought to tell you, we became engaged, and then we decided to get married, and we decided that we would get married in the temple. And now the closest temple was 2,400 miles away in Manti, Utah. I guess it was about that far, and so we figured it all out, and we got permission from the state president and that we would get married in Jacksonville and then head directly from Jacksonville to Salina, Utah. And she knew a little bit. She had been to Utah once. And so we got married in Jacksonville. And then we started our trip to Salina, Utah, to my parents' place, and they lived about 40 miles from Manti. So about a week later, it took us that long to drive from Jacksonville, Florida, to Salina, and then on April 8th, we were sealed in the Manti Temple, and that was a marvelous experience. We made the trek, and I got to tell you about the tire trouble that we had on the way. Your mom would be appreciated if we told you about car problems. But we got back to Jacksonville, Florida, and we noticed one of the tires was a little bit worn. And so we went to the tire place and had the tire changed. And the tire man said, "Come here and look at this." And he took his finger and stuck it through a hole in the tire.
What?
and the tire had held up for 5,000 miles without having a blowout.
Wow.
And I hadn't thought much about it, but since that time we've driven from Utah to Jacksonville, Florida, and to Kingsland, Georgia, to visit Jane's mother.
He said stories. Save something for another time.
But all this will be for the next time.
Until next time. That was good.